transfer vehicle. Actually, it's called the HTV transfer vehicle, and it actually takes cargo to the International Space Station, and normally it just burns all the trash, but in this mission they're gonna have a small capsule which is gonna be which has a heat shield and a parachute, and it's gonna land in the ocean after the HTV-7 finishes its mission. But today we have the launch. We have this rocket. I didn't finish it yet, but basically we have 4 of these boosters around the main core. It has 2 engines. This is the first stage until the black part, and then we have this part is a small second stage, and the HTV is crammed inside this white the fairing. And yeah, so we have about 6 tons of 6 metric tons of what is it? Cargo, yeah. So and a few batteries for the space station. They're gonna switch out the old nickel hydrogen batteries for lithium ion batteries, and that's inside the HTV. And yeah, this is the rocket that's gonna take it up. This launch was delayed a few times, first because of the typhoon, and then because of there was a problem with the oxygen valve on the second stage, I believe, and that's why it got delayed till today. Today they're gonna attempt a new launch, hopefully in just under 20 minutes, I believe. And so now also on the payload they have actually, it's, I don't know if I can call it 2 CubeSats, but it's basically it separates with a tether in between, and then there's going to be a rider which is going to ride the tether between the 2 CubeSats to test for the space elevator. And also there is of course food for the astronauts, water, probably some fuel to, I don't know, I don't think the HTV transfer fuel, but I think there's a possibility for it. They now with this mission they have re-entry capability, so some experiments will be re-entering again and they will survive the trip. The tiny capsule will deploy its parachute and land in the ocean and will be recovered, while the rest of the spacecraft, as you will burn up in the atmosphere. So yeah, that's what's in store for us today. So we currently, our time is in about 20 minutes now. The exact launch time is for me it's 7 p.m. 52 minutes and 27 seconds. Good evening, space nerds. Good evening to you. Yeah, welcome. Of course, if you have a question, leave them down in the comments. And so yeah, right now I'm seeing the screen, but I don't see the launcher yet. They're just talking in Japanese, and I can put it up, but it won't be really interesting. It has subtitles, but I think it's more interesting to watch me talk about it. So yeah, to this model, I made it myself. I designed it myself. I hoped I was gonna be releasing it tonight, but it's not ready yet. I made the changes, but I haven't made pictures of it anyway, or it just has one booster. So of course, these 4 boosters are solid boosters. They will ignite at launch and they will drop away. But the H2B and also the H2 has a really weird way of separating those boosters. You can see the long connector and 2 short ones. At booster separation, they can a rocket launch with 1 booster. Yeah, it can. It's the Atlas 5, but this one doesn't. It has 4. But I couldn't finish the build before this stream, so that's why it only has 1 booster. But the way they separate is, first of all, they separate the upper and the lower attachments, and then actually the booster pivots away on the long one, and then basically once it gets to a certain a distance, or actually when this has pivoted by a certain degrees, it just falls out of its socket, and that's how they separate it. I think it's really different from all the other boosters and the way of separating it, but I think it's really cool. And of course we have the second stage which will do a deorbit burn after it has separated the HTV. So the HTV is going to catch up to the space station. I think it's going to take 4 days, 4 or 5 days before it gets there. And yeah, they're gonna unload all the cargo, then slowly unload it, load it with all the trash they have. So yeah, never seen it with launch with only 1 booster. Yeah, the Atlas 5 actually launched OSIRIS-REx with only 1 booster, and it basically just speed skates of the launch pad actually, and then it just because of the engine gimbaling, they can keep it straight, and then they just slowly pitch downrange, and then the booster burns out and then they separate it. So yeah, that's how the Atlas 5 does it, and I don't know of any other rocket that does this, but only the Atlas 5 is the rocket I know that does this. I know the last launch of the Delta II had the boosters asymmetric, so that's also probably a rocket that could launch with 1 booster, but with the Delta you saw it and you didn't notice. Yeah, it's not really that obvious, but yeah. And this is after this launch, there are only going to be 2 more HTV launches, and then they will move over to the HTV-X, and I don't know if it launches on the H2B or on the H3. There might be a possibility that they move over to their new rocket and launch it on that rocket instead of the H2B. It wasn't in the broad daylight, I believe, the OSIRIS-REx launch. So yeah, both Jackson. Yeah, I know. I have it in front of me. I have it still muted, but I can unmute it for you. But this is the official Yaxa one, because by the way, are you still able to hear me over the talking of the stream? Just say yes, so I know my sound settings are okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, so I can't even understand. I can switch to it so you can read the subtitles while I'll talk over it because oh wow, wait a sec. My chat room went away. There it is. Okay. Yeah. Why I'm gonna show you the Yaxa live stream. That's because it probably has the highest quality since, as you know, with Roscosmos launches, like the astronauts going to the International Space Station, the NASA live streams, they're probably some camera on a screen, which degrades the quality really, or actually the quality goes down. That's why we'll use the Yaxon live stream. Hey, nice rockets in the background. Yeah, they are. It's actually the Falcon Heavy without second stage and payload fairing, but that's because I took them off because I needed them in another stream. And that's the Saturn V, and right in front of me I have the HTV rocket with only one of the 4 boosters installed. And I'm working on basically what I'm also working on, which is I bought this model. It is the launch tower of the complex that used to launch the space shuttles. So this is the part of the fixed surface structure, and then it's also made out of paper, but it's really cool. So if you have a question, please leave them in the comment section or in the chat room, because I am pretty certain I can answer them. And just let me have a look. How many minutes to launch? We're about 10 minutes away from launch, and it should take about 15 minutes for the spacecraft to reach orbit. It takes a little bit longer than, let's say, for instance, the Dragon or the Soyuz or the Progress, and that's mostly because this rocket doesn't use a lot of it doesn't use that high of a thrust engines. They are really efficient but don't have a lot of thrust. That's so that means that booster is gonna take a little bit longer to get up to speed, and so it's gonna take a little bit longer to get into orbit. It will get in orbit, but it will just take a little bit longer. Do you actually have any plans to make a reusable rockets? I really haven't seen plans for it, but I believe they are working on something with the H3, so that's going to be the next generation rockets. I don't know for sure, but I think they are. But I haven't really seen any designs. Oh, and this is the HTV-X I was talking about. So after this launch, we're gonna have in February we're gonna have the HTV-8, and then in 2020 we're gonna have the HTV-9, and afterwards it's gonna be the HTV-X. So yeah. Oh, where's my live streaming link? Okay, wait a second. So yeah, that's what Yaxa's doing at the moment. Here it is. I will show you paste. Yeah, and so but also they have a sort of similar system as the Ariane, because the Ariane 6 is going to use the same the boosters of the Ariane 6 are going to be the same as the first stage of the Vega, so that means that they only have to produce one sort of booster for the first stage of the Ariane, or for the first stage of the Vega and the first or sort of the first stage of the Ariane 6, because it uses it as a booster, and that's drives prices down. But these boosters on this rocket are the same as the first stage of the oh, here's the flight plan. I will turn the sound on. That's quite interesting. But they use the same boosters as on the Epsilon vehicle. So the Epsilon vehicle, the first stage, and the booster on the HTV-B are the same. So that's also making it a little bit cheaper to launch it. It's still really expensive, but so you can see the weird separating system over here. You can first see the two boosters, or the two attachments at the top and the bottom separate, and then it falls away, and then it falls out. The lower longer strut falls out of its socket and then drops away. Also, you can see how crammed it is in there. The HTV is really using the maximum volume of the HTV. Can't you hear the stream? That's weird. Are you not able to hear it? Still not?
I think you're
able to hear it now.
コウノトリ7号機は H2B ロケットから分離します。
Yes. I think you can now. Yes.
この後、コウノトリ7号機は高度を徐々に上げ、
I'm
お
still
よそ
fiddling
3
with
日かけて
OBS, by the
ISS
way.
に到着する予定です。ISS への到着には筑波宇宙センターコウノトリ管制室での運用が不
2 or
可欠
3 days.
になります。
Okay. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer, but
さあ、打ち上げの時が刻一刻と迫っています。ここからは種子島宇宙センター竹崎総合司令塔からの実況放送にバトンタッチします。ワクワクしますね。
so yeah, this is going to be really interesting.
毎秒2メートルです。
So here we have the
HII-B ロケッ
rocket.
ト7号機
You
の打ち上げに
can
問題はありませ
see
ん。
basically
It's 6 minutes to lift off. The current weather here at the launch site is clear. Temperature is 24 degrees Celsius. Wind is 2 meters per second from the northwest. The weather has no
so
constraints for
about
launch.
7 hours ago they started
本日
fueling,
の
I
打ち上
believe.
げ
They
予定
started
時刻は
cooling down
日
everything,
本時
so
間
it
の
has been
午前
fueled for a
2
very
時
long
52
time.
分27秒です。
Today's scheduled liftoff time is 2:50 to 27
Do I
a.m.
have to
Japan
have
Standard
plans to build
Time.
a Gundam? I don't know what that is exactly. Can you explain what it is?
310、309、
There the count starts.
307、
Wow.
306、
衛星系準備完了。
304、303、
The Japanese love to count down
Satellite
from
systems are go.
600 or something?
打ち上げ
I think it's really
5分
funny.
前です。
It's T-5 minutes and counting.
290、89、88、87、86、85、84、83、82、81、280、
Let's learn
79、
Japanese, no, I
78、
can't.
77、
Actually, funny story.
75、74、73、72、71、
Okay.
270、
I'm
69、
don't really like anime.
Automated countdown sequence has been initiated.
63、62、63、62、
種子島宇宙センタ
yeah,
ー竹崎総合司令塔から HII-B ロケット7号機の打ち上げ状況をお伝えしております。
oh yeah,
This is
so
HTV, the
the last
seventh
launch
HTV
about
launch vehicle from the Takesaki Range Control
almost 2
Center
years
at
ago.
JAXA Tanegashima Space Center.
One of my friends actually
現在ロケットの
is,
完成は吉信発射管制塔から行われています。
and I was
The
watching this on
Yoshinobu
school,
blockhouse is now
and I asked
demanding
him,
operation
well,
control
how
of the
far
launch
are they
vehicle.
in counting down? So he helped me. That's pretty funny.
230
So yeah, that's where the HTV is located right now. It's inside the fairing. I don't think they're planning on making a giant mobile soon.
209 208
They might in secret, but I don't think they are.
205 204 203 202 201 200 99 98 97 96 97 94 95 94 93 92 91 190
Is it so loud?
87 86 85 84 85 83 82 81 180 180
打ち上げ3分前です。
T minus 3 minutes in counting.
全システムの電源が外部から内部に切り替えられました。
The power has been switched to the internal systems.
67 66 65 64 63 62
Okay, I
61
turned it down
160
a bit, but I don't know. We have how many minutes?
150
2 minutes. So yeah, what is weird in OBS is that you have a bar which shows the sound, and then you have a slider to adjust the volume, but it's not
1
linear.
段液体水素系準備完了。
It
have
like at
completed the
50%,
pressurization
it's
of the liquid
only
hydrogen system of the HTV's
1/4
first
of the way
stage.
down. So I don't know what's wrong. I probably should do a test stream, figuring out what is the best sound configuration sometime soon. I will try. So, just as with the space shuttle, you will see, just before the engines fire, you will see sparks, and that's basically to burn off any excess hydrogen, because they use hydrogen and oxygen as fuel. And then you will see the engines fire for a few seconds, and then the boosters fire, and you see this big bright flame.
2段液体酸素系液体水素系準備
And
完了。
that's
Followed by the
when the rocket
pressurization of
takes
the
off.
liquid oxygen and hydrogen systems of the second stage, and they're now complete.
75 74 73 72 71
フレームデフレクター冷却開始。
Cooling initiates at the flame deflector of the launch deck.
65 64 63 62 61 60
打ち上げ1分前です。
T minus 1 minute.
56 55
1 minute to launch.
54 53
I'm excited.
52 51 50 49 48 47 46 45 44 43 42 41 40 39 38 37 36 35 34
ウォーターカーテン散水開始。
The sound suppressed water system has been activated at the launch deck.
27 26
So sound suppression is to basically damp the sound of the rocket, because the rocket can destroy itself. That's how powerful the sound waves are.
フライトモードオン。
Turning the flight mode on.
駆動用電池起動。
Activating the thermal batteries.
There you see the sparks
All
go,
systems are go.
メインエンジンスター
the
ト。
engines fire, and
Ignition.
SRB
there we go. We are off.
リフトオフ。
Igniting the SRBA and liftoff.
HII-B ロケット7号機は平成30年9月23日午前2時52分27秒に種子島宇宙センターから打ち上げられました。
We have a
Yes,
liftoff
it is
of the
beautiful
HTV
indeed.
launch vehicle number 7 with konotori 7 aboard from the JAXA Tanegashima Space Center at 2:50 to 27 a.m. Japan Standard Time on September 23,
There it goes.
2018.
Next Max Q and Mach 1.
打ち上げ以降、ロケットの管制は吉信発射管制塔から竹崎総合司令塔に引き継がれています。
I hope it's clear enough so we
The
can
operation
see the
control of the
can
launch
see
vehicle has
the.
been switched from the blockhouse to the range control center.
I hope it's clear enough so we can see the boosters separate, because with the H2B, it's really beautiful seeing the boosters separate.
ロケットは現在徐々に南東方向の太平洋上へ飛行しています。
The H-2B is now on the ascent above the Pacific Ocean to the southeast.
80、
ロケットは正常に飛行中であり、種子島の地上局は正常にロケットの追尾を行っています。
The H-2B flight is on course. The Tanegashima
So we
station is
should come
tracking
up
the
on
launch vehicle
booster
very
separate
well.
burnout and separation soon. You'll probably see the flames do a weird thing, and then they separate. They do the weird thing because basically,
11、
if you see the graph of the thrust on the rocket booster on the second or solid rocket booster, you have the point of ignition and the point of burnout. But actually, it goes up fast. Then, depending on what shape the inside has, it goes up or stays at the same level, but then at the end it drops down really quickly. It's like a sharp drop, and that's burnout. So basically it loses all the pressure inside of the rocket or in the booster. It loses all the pressure, and as you saw them separating, you lose all the pressure. So basically what the flame does, the flame is normally like a straight flame you see
The
normally,
H-2B has entered the
and
range
then
of the
all of a
Japan
sudden it loses all
Overwater
its
Station.
pressure, so it goes from a really powerful rocket flame to being a more of a candle flame. So that's why you see the plume doing like this weird wiggle. But yay, waiting music. Okay, if this is gonna be that for the whole thing, I'm gonna just turn it down.
打ち上げ後3分が経過しました。
It's 3 minutes into
So we should come up on payload fairing separation, because we're above the Kármán line right now. As you see on your screen, you have the velocity in meters per second and the altitude in kilometers. And above the Kármán line is when they separate it. When will they reach the ISS? It will reach the ISS in 2 or 3 days. But I believe I saw on the schedule it's going to take 4 days. But yeah, it depends. If the first thruster firings are okay and everything is on point, it will be on the station in 2 days. And if something goes wrong or they need to fix something on the spacecraft itself, it's going to take longer. And also, what I want to if you can see the ISS coming over your head within those 2 days, so when it's rendezvousing, I recommend, if you have clear skies, I recommend you go outside and watch the ISS come over, and you have to sometimes wait a while, but then you can see the HTV come over and see it as a less bright dot, because the ISS is really bright, but sometimes it's a weaker light, but it follows the ISS, and I think it's really beautiful. I've seen it with the Dragon a few times. Is there going to be a stream of docking? Yes, there is. NASA TV provides a stream of the docking, and maybe JAXA,
It's 5 minutes after
but
liftoff.
NASA for sure does or has coverage on launch. Or I had
秒
docking.
速約 3.7 km です。
The combustion of the first stage engine, attitude control, and trajectory are all nominal.
So
The
we should
H2
come up
flight
on
is on
MECO,
course. Current
which is main
altitude
engine
is
cutoff
547
at
kilometers
12
with the approximate velocity
and
3.7
then right
kilometers per
afterwards
second.
we have second stage ignition. So their orbit at
第
injection.
1弾エンジン燃焼停止
Then we have
The
Nico
first stage engine cut off.
and stage
第
separation.
1弾第2弾ロケット分離
Separation of the first and second stages.
Should have firing. Firing of the second stage, yes.
第2弾エン
That's
ジン燃焼
important.
開始
So the rocket is going to drop it off in a 240 by 240 kilometer orbit, I
The
believe,
HTV has entered the range of the JAXA Guam station.
and that's going to separate, and then it's going to be basically it will stay in that orbit to reduce its angle to the ISS, then boost it up to the ISS orbit, and then basically dock. And actually, with the H2B, it's not called docking; it's called berthing, because as you normally have the docking ports on the ISS, which are the Russian docking ports, and you have 3 US docking ports. But and on the rest of the modules, you have the common berthing mechanism. It's wider than the docking ports, but the spacecraft can't maneuver under it by itself and dock by itself. It needs the Canada arm, it needs the robot arm to dock, to deliver it to the last meters, put it onto the station. And it's a slower it's a slower way of docking to the International Space Station, because normally you dock. Let's say a Soyuz right now, you dock and then you check if the seal between the spacecraft is okay, and then you open the hatch. But right now you need to first maneuver under the station, then the Canada arm needs to grab it, then it needs to move it up to the berthing mechanism. Then there are hooks that need to latch into place. They need to check if all the hooks are latched, and then they can check the seal and open it. So it's a lot slower. That's why crew don't use spacecraft that have a berthing mechanism, but rather use the docking ports. Hello, Go to Space. Welcome. So for you, Afonso, you will know what I'm talking about. This is how far I got. This is literally the progress of yesterday is what I ended up with. So yeah, I only have 1 of the 4 boosters installed, and I need to take pictures of it still. So it's coming, but not yet. It's H201, yeah, it is. Right now it is. But it's a really great model. I really had fun building it. And it's my own designed model, so I'm really proud of it. Yeah, I really am. It's gonna do an Atlas 5. It's gonna... I actually am a chief designer of JAXA now. I found out that they could use this rocket. They just power slide off the ramp. It's nice because it's big. Yeah, it's actually 1 in 100. So imagine how large the rocket is.
It's 10 minutes into flight.
I can actually, while we're at it, I'm gonna put it next. So as you can see in the background, I have the Falcon Heavy. I'm gonna put it next to the Falcon Heavy so you can see the size difference. I'm gonna put a wrong fairing on the Falcon Heavy, I know. Yes, I have designed my own rocket.
ロケットは現在安定した飛行を続けております。現在の高度は約 280km、 秒速約 6.0km です。
Are you still able to hear
Combustion
me?
of the second stage engine, attitude control, and flight trajectory are all nominal. The HTV flight is on course. Current altitude is about 280 kilometers. Velocity is approximately 6 kilometers per second.
Okay. Okay. So as you can see, this is the size difference. They're the same scale, but still. Yeah. It's like a Falcon Heavy booster plus plus a few meters. Yeah, I designed it myself. What do you think of the H3 rocket under development? I think it's really cool. It's going to be really powerful, and yeah, it's basically going to be using a stretched first stage of the H2B and then a larger, or actually the stretched first stage and then use a larger second stage. And yeah, it's going to use 3 engines on the first stage. I mean, do you have designed your own launch vehicle from scratch? Mean an actual launch vehicle or just this rocket? I designed this rocket myself, and for a school project, I am going to design a rocket, but that's for next year. That's not this year. And I'm gonna build a hybrid rocket engine. So
小笠原局はロケット追尾を終了しています。
they are developing new motors for the H3, I think. No, they aren't. I thought they were, but they were just future generations of the engines that are on the H2. Will your rocket be reusable? Yes, sort of. It's gonna be a concept. It's not gonna be real, but we are going to make a rocket engine, and that might be. It's gonna be a little bit wonky, I think. It's not going to be really going to be representative of what we are going to design. But we just, for simplicity's sake, are going to do something to tease you with it. I won't be sharing this on Twitter. Well, the progress maybe on YouTube and definitely on my Patreon page. Yeah. So my Patreon page, I have a Patreon page now. I am going to. I don't have Patreons yet. You can. It starts at $1, so if you want to support me, please go ahead. I will link it in the description after the stream ends. But basically, what I'm going to be doing there is. Oh, I'm interrupting. We just have second stage cutoff, and in a few minutes we're gonna have vehicle separation. So I will just talk quickly. What I'm gonna do is basically share my progress on models, probably, and I'm gonna share models early on Patreon. So the drone chip is gonna be on there early, probably a H2A if I get to designing it, and I probably will share my rocket building progress over there first before I put it on YouTube or any other platform. And also on Patreon you will have access to exclusive streams, which is probably going to be KSB, Wonky, and yes, spacecraft separation. Did Japan ever design a space shuttle type space plane? I don't think they did. I should check on it, but I don't think they did. Sure, let me
補給物資を
just
搭載したコウノトリ7号機は
configure it
国際宇宙
this
ステーションへ向け分離されました。
The cargo transporter konotori 7 has just left for the International Space Station.
Yes. So yeah.
これをもちまして H2B ロケット7号機による宇宙ステー
Let
シ
me
ョン補
mute
給
this again. Oh yeah. So that was it for today, probably. Where's my chat room? There it is. So we had a successful launch, and yeah, finally, we saw again the HTV fly after a downtime of almost 2 years, and yeah. So if you like what I'm doing, like my stream, and want to support me, please go on to Patreon and support me if you want. It starts at $1, so it really helps me because I will be funding my hybrid rocket or actually my hybrid rocket engine with it. So yeah. And my paper models will be released on there early, and as thank for supporting me, and we will have exclusive hangouts. So yeah, oops, late. Yeah, sorry, it's already over. I will put it online as soon as possible, as soon as YouTube archives it and is finished or has finished streaming, doing what it does. I will put it live. So yeah. What do you think of Japanese dude planning to send artists on the moon with BFR? I think it's really cool. People think it's a waste of money, but he is actually helping to fund the BFR, and to actually they are doing a test flight anyway, so he is basically funding the development of the BFR, and in turn he gets a flight on the BFR itself. So by taking artists with him, I think it's really cool because they can have a different look on what we see, because you hear stories from astronauts that actually see the deforestation and some other climate change you can directly see, and it changes their perspective of the Earth. And I think if the artists on the BFR see the Earthrise, I think it's going to change their thinking about what we are and what we believe. Would you buy a lottery ticket for, say, $1,000 just for chances to win a seat? No, I would just go and try and do the competition, but I won't do a lottery because it's basically the same. I think yeah, there will be 4 crew members, so probably 4 astronauts on the BFR. So yeah, that's what I think of the plan of the BFR. So again, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share with all your friends. And I'm a really bright guy. I know my shit. I know what I'm talking about. I can answer all your questions. So if you have Twitter and ever have a question about some rockets, you can always ask me. Sometimes I don't respond immediately, but sometimes I do. So please do that. And if you like my work and want to support me, go ahead and go over to Patreon and support me. So yeah, this was it for today, and see you in the next stream at Astra to the stars.